Hi, everyone. My name is Lydia Hatton. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and mindset coach. My mission is to help you better manage your mind so that you can live the life that you desire. So many of us have blocks and fears stuck in our subconscious mind, and the great news is that once we find them, we can take them out and replace them with what we want. Your mind is so much more powerful than anyone truly realizes. And I'm here to help you find your way into that territory, to release places where you feel stuck, to help you find ideas to regain more power in your life, and to help you feel solid in anything you wish to pursue. Today, I'm going to talk to you about overwhelm. Overwhelm is something that hits us pretty regularly in life. There's so much going on in the modern day and age where we're actually looking around us just saying, how did I get here? So much of overwhelm is how we respond. And as a side note, if you're going through a very difficult time right now and are extremely overwhelmed due to something going on in your life, maybe this video can help you. This is more directed at people who want to just be able to create boundaries, use their voice better, and find more avenues to increase taking control of their mind. Let's go. So, overwhelm is an all senses experience, and it has everything to do with how we respond in life. It's coming at us, it's hitting all of our senses, our nervous system, what we hear, and our mind is constantly going, trying to figure things out. But a lot of overwhelm has to do with patterns that are in our subconscious mind that were put there a long time ago by experiences and things that happened when we were very young. Those types of beliefs about our power and agency truly drive how we respond in life. So, a lot of how we respond have to do with our beliefs about our safety and power that were formed, be it between the ages of 0 and 7, or in a traumatic event, or even by the patterning of our parents. So, we can get in there and take a look at something that might be making us fearful that was actually formed a long time ago, that's a memory in our subconscious mind. Another thing that could be creating overwhelm in our life is that some of us might not feel very good about who we are. Might not feel good enough, and our self-worth, how much we really appreciate who we are and where we stand in relation to others, is a corollary to our personal power. And so when you see somebody who's using their voice and is saying yes and no and being able to manage the world around them, pretty good sign that they've got a good idea of their own self-worth, that they value themselves and they respect themselves, and they respect themselves enough to say no. So there are a couple things going on that factor into how we respond to different things in our life that create overwhelm. So it all starts with how you think. In my realm, we follow a model that our thoughts drive our feelings, and our feelings then drive our actions and behaviors. So your thinking is really based on a lot of, again, that early structuring as a child when your subconscious mind is absorbing patterns and things that happen when you're very, very young. So an idea around this, or an example, is if you wake up in the morning and you're very excited about something you're getting ready to finish at work, and you have a great breakfast, you pack a lunch, you plan to go to the gym, and you're feeling wonderful, and you really are in the game all day long, very present. Your thoughts are driving your feelings, and your feelings are driving your actions and behaviors. Conversely, if you wake up in the morning and you're thinking about the person who's very challenging at work and you're really frustrated about that, and so you kind of, decide to show up at work late, you don't necessarily eat a breakfast, you drink a lot of coffee, you go out to lunch and you have too much to eat, or you delay going back into the office because you're doing your best to not confront an issue that needs to be handled. In that case, again, your thoughts are driving your feelings, and those feelings are driving your actions and behaviors. So we want to get into why we think the way that we do, what's going on in there, how two people can go through the exact same experience and have completely different responses. So much of it has to do with how we think and why we think the way that we do. So I want to get into a little brain science, just what I call the brain basics that I review with most everyone who comes in for a hypnotherapy session, because it's very helpful for people to understand the power of the subconscious mind and to also help them realize that so many of our struggles and fears are not our fault as adults. They were embedded as programming, limiting beliefs, and patterns when we're very, very young. So the first thing is to understand how powerful the subconscious mind really is. So in this graphic, you see that the conscious mind, this prefrontal cortex up here, it's responsible for the creative function, relative to what do I want to create today? What do I want to do at work today? The subconscious mind is your habitual mind. That's the mind that carries the neural networks that, you learn how to drive, you learn how to walk, you learn how to use a computer. Those neural networks and those memories are in the subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is also in charge of your heartbeat, your breath, when you're sleeping at night. This machine is running, keeping you alive. The amazing thing to note here is that we are 5% aware in terms of our conscious mind. 95% of our thinking and our cognitive activity goes on in the subconscious mind. So there is a lot of horsepower back there that is carrying your body and your body's functions, your perceptions, and everything through your day 24/7. And I also want you to realize that the processing power of your prefrontal cortex is 1x compared to 1 million x in your subconscious mind. You have the smartest supercomputer on the planet sitting between your ears, okay? Just know that they haven't been able to completely replicate the power of the human mind. They're close, but they've not hit it yet because of the critical factor and a lot of other consciousness factors that are going on that are related to the world around us. The next thing that I like to share with everybody are these basic brain facts. You think about 50 to 70,000 discrete thoughts a day, most of which are repetitive, the primary amount of which are negative, based on more than 1,000,000 years worth of evolution in terms of protecting yourself. So the brain's job, number one job, is to keep you alive. So you've got a lot of automaticity in terms of being able to make sure that you're safe as you go through your day. But know that those are habits that can keep you feeling a little suppressed. So just be aware of that. Your brain carries 90 billion neurons approximately, and I like to call them neural connection opportunities because your brain is plastic. And if you wanted to learn how to play the piano all of a sudden, you would go ahead and create a new neural network. And so we are continually learning new things in our lives through repetition, creating new neural networks. And that is the key to reprogramming your mind. And I'm going to talk to you about that in a little bit. You actually have 3 brains in your body. Certainly you have this one between your ears, but you also have 40,000 white brain cells in your heart. It's called the heart plexus. And then certainly you have all of the information and sensory information and computation in your gut, which is also known as the enteric nervous system. Huge science going on around the intelligence of the gut right now. So all of this information runs up into your brain at approximately 267 miles an hour. More of it is going up than is from here going down, okay? Your whole mind is processing 11 million bits of information every second. But this conscious mind up here, the prefrontal cortex, is only factoring 40 to 50. Why does it choose the 40 to 50 that it does? Well, that is the key factor in terms of why you see things the way that you do. And we're going to get into that. But you're essentially seeing from your past. So your brain creates a point of reference relative to what are the bits it's going to select, to compute and focus on. And the example I give clients is if they wanted to go in and buy the greatest new red car, picked it out, know exactly what they want, and they get to the lot and they don't have a red car. They only have blue cars. Well, then all of a sudden they get talked into buying the blue car even though they never saw themselves in a blue car, and they drive off the lot and they look around and they're like, I had no idea so many people drove blue cars, ever. What changed? In 10 minutes, what changed? Why did they all of a sudden start seeing blue cars everywhere? That's the 40 to 50 bits that shifted based on a new point of reference. This is also why you have 12 people on a jury. No human can see the exact same thing in the exact same way as another human. Just keep that in mind. That is why everybody's always going to have a different point of view. Your subconscious mind is a 24/7 record of everything you've experienced in your life. Just know that it is always listening. And when we're working in hypnosis, we go into a very gentle, relaxed state, and we can inquire with the subconscious using phrasing such as, what is the root, the cause, the reason for why you fear speaking in public? And your brain is almost like a holographic machine. It will go right to it. It doesn't sit there and float going, please hold, like the Hogwarts library, please hold. Your brain will go right to something you need to know that is locked and loaded around a fear, an electrochemical signature that has to do with why you're afraid of speaking in public, and it will go right back to the genesis when you were most often between the ages of 0 and 7. Also, just please note that when you get very, very stressed out, the habitual mind, that mind that's on constant alert, will begin to take over, and your prefrontal cortex will begin to shut down. It will begin to back off. So you can flee, you can use all these extra senses to measure your safety in a particular environment. And that's meant to be used very infrequently. But in today's age, particularly when you feel so stressed and in overwhelm, know that you're not entirely using everything you can in your thinking mind. All of the cortisol and everything is keeping you back here in a fear state. And I have seen studies where they have taken pictures of human brains of people that have been in long-term abusive relationships, and the shape of the brain has changed. This prefrontal cortex actually will shrink. So keep that in mind. Do as much as you can to get out of fear states so that you can think clearly. Okay, last bit of brain basics. I want to just talk to you about your brain waves, because this has a lot to do with why hypnotherapy is so successful, but also how it is that we get programmed when we're younger with limiting beliefs that may no longer be true, but are running like, programs running through like an operating system. I tell people getting programmed when, you're younger and having these beliefs, these limiting beliefs about yourself show up later in life as an adult is like you've got a 5-year-old in a cubby car paddling along in your brain, making decisions about who you are when you're in your 30s and your 40s that are no longer true. But because of the developmental pathway of the human brain, and again, for survival and connection, we will lock and load certain programs and beliefs about ourselves when we're very young. So again, I want you to recognize that the human brain is as sophisticated as a supercomputer. There are 4 major brainwave categories that go from 0 to 30 hertz in the brain. And there are brainwaves above gamma, and then even lambda, which is where Tibetan monks can be found. But again, for purposes of our discussion here, know that when you come onto the planet, your brain waves are in a very slow hertz fashion, primarily delta, then theta kicks in, and then alpha, sometime around 7, we start to see that. And then beta, which is what you're listening with and what you're factoring with right now as I'm giving you information, and what I'm in right now as I'm speaking to you, is basically what's going on in your prefrontal cortex. So these logical beta brainwaves start kicking in around the age of 7, and that is where we start saying, no, I want to do it this way, I think I want to do that, etc. I'm going to, run off and make new friends, and that type of more independent activity. But until that time, between theta and alpha, most everyone is in a semi-hypnotic state as they're growing up, taking in all sorts of information and getting programmed by the adults around them. And because we have to learn to survive, we have so much to learn to survive on this planet. But it might also be where we, get left at the playground and no one comes to pick us up at the age of 6 because there's a new baby in the house. And we decide we don't matter. And we would have, let's say 2 or 3 of those experiences in our life. And that belief that's locked and loaded with an electrical chemical charge at the age of 6 becomes an old habit, mental habit, that will drive how we perceive ourselves all the way into adulthood. So when we're going into a very gentle hypnotic trance, we're taking you out of beta up here and bringing you down into those alpha and theta waves where those memories are stored. And then we can find the memory, through direction. I'm just the guide. You are doing the work in a hypnosis session. And we can find the limiting beliefs that you may have formed at a very young age. And we can heal them and we can change them out for what it is that you want. So again, I just want you to understand that brain waves are very important both in our development and as the source for what might be holding you back. But also when you're in sleep and healing, you're going into these deep brainwave states so that your body can, clear the organs at night, etc. So very important to understand that we're in beta right now when we're in the logical mind, but that we go in alpha and theta in a hypnosis trance, but you're also in trance on and off all day long. When you're driving your car, going off to get something for dinner, and all of a sudden you're in this shopping, parking lot there, well, you are in trance. When you're looking at a movie and you're totally engrossed, you're in trance. When you're scrolling, looking at your phone, you go into a trance. So just know that even as an adult, we are in and out of trance all day long. So what do you mean we're mentally programmed? I know, but this is why hypnotherapy is so helpful, but it's also really important to understand that we are all programmed between the ages of 0 and 7 by our families, by the events around us, good, maybe not so good. I think, so much creativity and love and everything that we carry forward as adults certainly is shaped at this point in time, not entirely. But when it comes to understanding why you think the way you do, this is the territory that we go looking in to see if there's something that, might not be so helpful to you. So when we talk about getting programmed, we're basically saying, again, you have operating software in here, and your life experiences are creating a mental blueprint that forms a lot of how you see yourself, your agency in your power in the world. As I said before, at these young ages, you're in delta, theta, and alpha brain waves primarily, and certainly in theta and alpha when you're, not in a sleep state. You are taking in everything around you as reality. Know that we get programmed by our parents and the world around us, both good and maybe not so good. And I think an example of that is that when somebody says you're acting just like your mother, and he's like, no, don't say that. And then everybody around the table is going, mm-hmm. These are these subconscious patterns that come in, whether we like it or not. Whether you cough or sneeze like somebody in your family. Again, we both have things that we inherit, but then also things that we adopt due to behavioral imprinting when we're very, very young. This is where critical self-beliefs are primarily formed. I'm not good enough. I can't have what I want because I'm an outsider. What I want is for everybody else. I'll never be able to have it. I'm not worth it. I'm not worth using my voice. Roles in family are also taken at a very early age. And in my training with Marissa Peer, she talked about 4 archetypes that are formed or adopted by all of us in a family system for connection. And it's very interesting because it also is a map for how you're going to respond, how you're going to take care of yourself, and how you're going to manage the world around us. So, an example of that is, first of all, the four archetypes are the carer, the perfect one, the sick one, and then the rebel. And most often people will tell me there are a combination of all of those. But primarily one will come forward. And so if you're the carer in a family, that means you're the one that's going around making sure everybody's happy and you're taking care of all your siblings. You're probably even taking care of your parents to some level. Well, the issues with carers is that when it comes to getting overwhelmed, they take on so much that they truly leave themselves for last. And that can create a lot of health issues that, can certainly create a lot of issues around I'm not enough. This is how I connect with everybody. Another example is if you're the perfectionist and you decide that when something happens, you are just going to run it to ground. You're going to keep going and you're going to fix it until it's just perfect. That is going to burn you out. A lot of people that are burned out are either perfectionists because that's how they learned to be loved. They were either the first children or they ended up being the one that had to take care of their parents and they were in charge and they just overcompensate and they just feel overwhelmed because at some point, something like the body most likely is going to put the brakes on. So in this work, you can see those four archetypes shaping the way that we interpret and manage the world around us. And also, when we're that young, our levels of safety, again, and our ability to connect, the negotiations we make in our family systems and with people around us to be connected, begin to hardwire. And as I mentioned, your self worth can get higher and wired between the ages of 0 and 7. So, this early blueprinting can be the source for subconscious fears that drive our adult perceptions. And I've already discussed this, but I think it's worth noting, particularly if you're trying to manage a very overwhelming situation, that this early blueprint could be driving so much of what's frustrating you in terms of trying to back overwhelm off. And so, where I see it in my work is that when people come in and they're overwhelmed and they're really frustrated about what's going on around them, there is early blueprinting where they learned it wasn't safe to use their voice. There can be early blueprinting that set them up for a fear of rejection, that they decided they had to accept everything that was happening around them. Otherwise, they would get rejected. That can also keep people from using their voice as a fear of rejection. You might also have been attacked by an older sibling or a family relative or a particular difficult situation at school when you were very young. And you learned that speaking up, saying no, or turning somebody away can set you up for attack. You have intense body memory around that. So, again, early blueprint, and it can be changed. You might have a fear of loss of connection. A lot of people that come through are fearful of saying something regarding a situation that's not acceptable because they fear losing the connections to the people around them if they speak up. You can also be blueprinted where you just don't feel like you're good enough. I don't matter as much as. Both of those get formed when we're very, very young. And so when it comes to just managing the world around us as adults, and we don't think we matter or matter as much as our mother, or matter as much as our older brother, or matter as much as the sibling who's got, a learning challenge or something like that, that can really form how you handle situations and responses to the world around you. And I'm not good enough is classic. I won't speak up for myself. I'm just not good enough to have what I want, etc., etc. So, how do you manage a lot of this? Certainly consciously, on a day-to-day basis. My job is to help you understand a lot of what's going on with your subconscious mind, but also provide ideas and places for you to look so that you can understand, okay, it's my mind that's setting me up this way. what can I do about it? And learning to manage your mind and your mindset is key to really pulling your power back, because you deserve the best life. You deserve to be powerful and empowered. One of the phrases we use in this work is we bringing back the power where it was hidden away, taken away, or put away by you in a way that is no longer necessary. Okay? So, 4 places to go to help you bolster your personal power and feeling of agency in the world, and to set boundaries that you feel comfortable with because you understand a little bit more about why you're doing it. First place, your mind. Certainly, we can say, okay, I'm just overwhelmed because I can't think more clearly. Well, again, you're in a fear state possibly, and your subconscious mind is kicking up. But also, please be aware that your thoughts and your self-talk are critical factors driving your emotions and behaviors. So the chart here on the right, or the graphic rather, is a fascinating graphic where someone pulled together a couple thousand people and said, please mark where you feel different emotions in your body, and across all different types of states. So in the upper left, you see anger and you see fear. And this is where people have marked their heart, and they really can see that their head is being, lit up as well. The one in the middle on the top row is happiness. Happiness is considered to be a full body emotion, but your thoughts are kicking off those emotions. And so, again, when you're going into overwhelm and your heart's pounding and your head is getting ready to explode, know that a lot of what's going on is what you're saying to yourself and the way that you're thinking. So, pull yourself back from being very critical. Please don't beat yourself up, and create phrases that you can use to just calm your body down. I will know the answer. It is coming to me. I don't have the answer yet. Yet is a very important signal to your brain that it is coming, and your brain will keep looking for opportunities. That's what I'm talking about relative to self-talk. Your subconscious mind is always listening. That 24/7 record, it's listening. And your subconscious mind is literal. It does not have a sense of humor. So if you're going out and saying, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming, I might be able to figure it out at some point, I just can't deal, your subconscious mind is going to go, okay, all right, well, you just can't deal. And it will kind of close off potential opportunities or discussions. You won't see things as clearly as you could if you were to tell your mind, I am going to figure this out. The solution is going to come to me. I know it is coming. I just don't have it yet. You'll get a completely different response, both internally and externally. Use intentions and as if language. Your brain's job is to deliver what you want. So when you're going out into a meeting that is creating a lot of anxiety and fear, I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know. I'm worried about talking to this person. I'm a little anxious about this presentation. Tell your brain, this conversation is going to go wonderfully. I will be able to get my points across. They will be heard, and I will have XYZ outcome. And you walk in and you say, I am completely confident. And when you say that, your body changes. Your shoulders go down, your head goes up, you take a deep breath, and your energy is completely different when you walk in the room. Use as if a lot to get your body to give you the energy you need to perform. You can also use visual symbols to inspire you to keep track of focusing on how powerful you are. So a visual symbol, and I think anybody that's seen Egyptian hieroglyphics or even a stop sign, a visual works into your mind much different than a word does. It goes right in, and you can use symbols to communicate multi-layers of information. Find a symbol that's important to you, one that conveys strength or confidence, and keep it in front of you all the time. Find a model for new behavior sets. This gets down to when we're being patterned by parents, or, having different ideas of what's acceptable in a family system. You don't know what you don't know. You can't all of a sudden become full of self-respect if you weren't taught that as a child. How do you learn to model a new behavior? Find someone who is acting in the manner you wish to emulate, or find resources. Google it, and you will get ideas. It will also help map what you know and what you need to learn. But know that modeling a behavior until you get that into your system through repetition is the best way to begin to affect a difference, particularly when you're overwhelmed. And lastly, I just want to offer journaling. I know so many people are like, oh, I don't like journaling. There's a lot of research out about how transformative it is. And as it applies to overwhelm, if you're feeling completely overwhelmed about a particular person, place, event, situation, if you write just for 20 minutes for 4 days, it will completely transform the way your brain is factoring the information around that particular situation, because you're tapping into a higher level of knowledge. We all have that ability. And you don't have to have a purpose in your writing, just write. And this connection between your fingers and this higher knowledge will deliver things that you would never have been able to consciously access. Your body, number 2. I chose this graphic because I really wanted to make a point by taking you to the edge a little bit to show you how stress affects your mortality. This is an older piece of research. It's from 1999. I pulled because I was helping someone put together a business plan for a respite center for frontline care workers during COVID. She was very concerned about what was happening to the doctors and nurses in hospitals. And so what we discovered is that the health of a distressed frontline caregiver was getting significantly compromised. And so if you're the caregiver in your family and that's part of your overwhelm, or if you feel like you're going to be set up that way, or if that's just your general nature, make sure you are doing a good job to take care of your body as you're going through anything that's driving overwhelm. One of the best things to do is break your state. Take a 10-minute break every hour. Go for a walk. Meditate. Listen to something that's, going to calm your nervous system. Grab some colored pencils and just start doodling. By getting into the creative mind, you completely disengage, the fury that's going on that it might be overwhelming you. Slow your beta waves. That's another thing to when you want to slow your roll, slow your waves. Just keep calming yourself down. Another thing is what I like to refer to as verbal jujitsu, where you're just kind of like, okay, what is a way I can respond to delay what's happening and or to give myself some time to breathe and think. A lot of us habitually will be like, okay, I'll take care of it. I got it. Because we're really good at what we do, or we were put in that position as children in the family. You just had to be the one to do everything, otherwise it wasn't going to get done right. Don't let that be you at a cost to your health and your well-being. So one thing to learn to say to people is, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you in a little bit. If someone's coming to you at work and always saying, here, I need you to do this, here, I need you to do that, one thing you can do is say to them, I'm actually in need of a lot of extra help myself. Could you help me? More often than not, they're going to run in the other direction and you're not going to hear from them again. Use Mother Nature to heal. A lot of research done in Japan around how forest bathing will boost your immunity in just 4 days. Getting into Mother Nature is incredibly healing, and so many of us forget about that as adults. But I want you to think back to that slide that was the brainwave slide, okay? And when we're looking at beta, alpha, theta, and then delta, the brain waves between alpha and theta are actually the same brain waves that are the pulse of Mother Earth, also known as the Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance hangs around 7.8. Alpha brain waves are from 8 to 12 hertz, and theta's below. So when you go into nature, you are completely resetting your mind to that beautiful heartbeat that is bringing you out of beta. It's calming your nervous system, and you are truly, truly tuning in to something that is very healing for you. Many people know you also need to move your body to move your emotions. Your emotions are energy, and they are energy in motion. They are meant to move. Everybody knows how much better they feel after taking a walk. Well, a lot of the chemistry, and they're also known as peptides in terms of what's carrying that emotional frequency, gets moved in your body. And when I'm working with someone in a hypnotherapy session, I'll ask them, where do you feel that in your body when they're getting at something that's a block or some big fear or something that's been with them for a very long time? And more often than not, they'll be like, oh, my throat, my heart, my guts, my lower back. And we can clear it. But when you shove emotion inside you, it does ultimately have a physical ramification if it's not processed and moved. So please know, continue to move your body, to move your emotions. They are meant to move, they're not meant to be static. Breathe to ease in 5 minutes. You can do box breathing. You can look online for different types of breathing that you can do because your breath is the bridge to calm yourself down. That vagus nerve responds to breathing, and opening up that diaphragm just allows your heart to release. Okay. So the next thing that you can do to help bring back some power when you are in overwhelm, take a look at your relationships. You know, boundaries are critical to being respected, but also respecting yourself. And they carry energy. You can feel it when somebody walks into a room. If they're holding up a boundary, or if by their body posture they don't feel good about themselves and you want to rush out and say, well, let me take that for you. Don't do that. Keep from taking on other people's energy, most certainly to manage your own, but also know you need to carry your own boundaries as well. Saying no to others is saying yes to yourself. Please remember, saying no to others is saying yes to yourself. So just feel good that you are giving yourself something when you say no to someone else. And know that life is circular. There's a reciprocal relationship. You'll be able to help somebody else or help that person at another time. You may have old subconscious beliefs about your ability to say no that are interfering with today. Again, that gets back to programming as a child, whether you need to say no to a parent, you need to say no to a boss, and your whole body is shaking in fear. That is not the adult version of you. Just keep that in mind. That could be the younger version of you sitting at the dining room table that doesn't want to eat any more Brussels sprouts. So work with that younger child that is interfering with your no power. Recognize that that is most often the source for deep-seated fears when it comes to confronting people in positions of power. Understand you are powerful, you have a right to be here, and respect yourself. Also, I want to mention, please have compassion for people pleasers. And if that's you, understand that people pleasing is a survival strategy. Often we have to keep everybody happy to keep safe when we're younger and to be connected. And that is a learned behavior. So if you're a people pleaser that's going out and taking care of everybody, and yet you are secretly overwhelmed and you're not taking good care of you, know again that that is possibly a strategy from your childhood, but you don't need that anymore. You can let it go. So just check in and, think about that for a little bit and choose something different. Sometimes our relationships with others and how we're responding in overwhelm are being controlled by what we call subconscious parts. And some people are familiar with parts therapy, but the way that we use it in hypnotherapy is that we can actually dialogue with the part of you that may be keeping you overwhelmed, that may be keeping you stuck, that may be the part of you that doesn't believe you can use no. And it's very interesting, it's super effective. And what we do is we go through and say, okay, I'm the part of Sally. I'm the part of Sally that's afraid of speaking in public. That's afraid of speaking in public. That's Sally repeating me. And my role in Sally's life is to, and Sally will immediately say what comes to mind because she's in a gentle, hypnotic trance. And it can be to protect me. And I need to do that because it wasn't safe to speak when I was younger. So we can unfold and unfurl something, and we can then say, how old was Sally when you became a part of you? 4. So what we can go in and is we can heal that part that is still driving that behavior of being afraid to say no subconsciously, okay? And we can unwind it and we can let it go. Ultimately, I'm always suggesting to everyone that the most important relationship is the one that you have with yourself. Last place I recommend people take a look at when they're dealing with issues of overwhelm or fears or anything else that might be going on in their life is their environment around them. The health of your outer environment directs you affects you directly. I got it. Just like a cell. I am a huge fan of Bruce Lipton's work. He was a PhD doing stem cell research back in the 60s at Stanford. And what he discovered was that when he changed the medium of the petri dishes where these stem cells were located, it affected a different expression from the DNA inside the cell. And he continued to really work on that to understand then that also it was the cell membrane that was choosing what to communicate with that DNA. And there's been a lot of research, after that, relative to gene expression, certainly, but the environment around the cell itself can be a driving factor. So if we also look at ourselves as a cell in a larger environment, our environment around us can have a significant impact on how we feel and how we're managing overwhelm. Find ways to edit out toxicity. If you look at that environment around you as the medium in a petri dish, how healthy is it? How healthy is it such that you feel safe and can express your best self? Simplify, simplify, simplify. If you've got toxic people, you're on social media, whatever it is that could potentially be an element of toxicity that you can eliminate, do it, because it's having potentially energetic and subconscious impacts on you that you aren't aware of. You just know that something's going on out here. Just go after whatever you can get your hands on. Another thing that your body and your mind responds to is a refresh project. If you want to change up a room so that you feel better in it, that's great. Change the room, change the color, change the energy. It's super healthy for you and it demonstrates to your mind that you're moving in a new direction. And sometimes it's very challenging, but we have to realize that we can't change or control the environment and we have to take ourselves out of it. Okay. And I think part of that is just being honest about your own evolution. We are always evolving, always learning, turning into different versions of ourselves. And so part of it can be that you are just evolving into a bigger, better version of yourself. Just be honest about who you are and what is your stage in terms of being able to accept something that might not be acceptable in your life. So I just want to give you, before we end, a couple examples about where your power might be hidden away and how we find it in hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy is a very gentle process. It's got a lot of baggage with the name, but you are in complete control the entire time. And so when we are working in a session, I'm the guide, and I tell people you can get up and go to the bathroom, you can call your broker, but it is fascinating and it's very deep and will take you into places that will really help set you free. So when it comes to overwhelm, I want to give you an example of a gentleman that came to see me because he was having difficulty flying. It had kind of come on over the past 5 years and hadn't really had an issue flying before, but was also having an issue driving over bridges, and really didn't understand it, was getting ready to go on a vacation. It really overwhelmed. He didn't want to have to medicate flying. And so we started our session, and my inquiry for him was, what is the root, the cause, the reason for why you are anxious flying and feeling so overwhelmed? We ultimately went back to a scene in his childhood where he was 3 years old. And it was very challenging what was happening around him. And he developed a core belief that in particular aspects he wasn't safe. Now, that was something that started at the age of 3, and things, difficulties, challenges, major trauma and loss in his, adult life came in and kind of piled on. And so I say to people, it's like, 1 minute you can have all this stuff adding up and water's not boiling, and then all of a sudden water's boiling. So it doesn't have to be a straight line. It can be an accumulation of events, but in hypnotherapy, we can get down to the beginning, the initial sensitizing event. So we went in and we understood the genesis of it. We did the healing work, freed him up from it, got him into what we call future pacing, where he was able to envision flying with ease and having a ton of fun on vacation, etc. 2 weeks later, I got a picture, and it was on top of about an 80-foot mast of a sailboat, and it said, "Thanks for the session." So it's very fascinating, again, how you can identify these particular situations and turn it around. Another example I'd like to give you when it comes to overwhelm specifically is I was working with someone who had started their own business during COVID, actually, and had been doing quite well, but wanted to get bigger clients, increase their pricing, and was having a heck of a time trying to figure out how to release the early stage clients and or raise their prices without offending them, without having a fall off. It was creating incredible overwhelm because they cared. They wanted to do the best thing. They wanted to do the right thing. But it was just getting to be unmanageable. Their business was really taking off. So we went back and again with the inquiry, what is the root, the cause, the reason for your overwhelm? And went to a scene when they were about 4 years old. And they're sitting on an apartment floor with their mother. And the father is outside screaming at somebody and was not behaving well. And the core belief that was formed in that situation, and again, as it was repeated, was that I'm never going to be able to affect the world around me. They're telling me it's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. So I can't say anything. I just have to take it. I just have to deal with it the way it is. That was formed with the mind of a 4-year-old. So we went in and we understood it and unwound it and brought it truly to consciousness where it's something that they're working with right now and working through strategically by listening to their audio every day and understanding that they have incredible amount of agency and ability to manage their world and manage their business with ease. So I want to thank you for listening to my presentation today. I know that overwhelm is something we all share and don't always remember how our mind and the way that we respond and also our own upbringing might have something to do with how much power we have in the world around us. Just remember, you have so much more power than you think you do. So understand the roots to the fears that are holding you back. So many of them are not your fault. I always say to people I'm working with, this was made with the mind of a child. It is not your fault. Women in particular can carry enormous amounts of shame that is not their fault, but they take it on their families and the world around them, and they feel like they're to blame that they can't figure this out. It is not true. You have the ability to reprogram your mind and release fears and blocks that are holding you back. Also, please remember that every habit of action that you take is first a habit of thought. So your mind controls your feelings, and your feelings run your actions and behaviors. Just keep that in mind. You really want to get back to stopping yourself saying, okay, wait a minute. What is my habit of thought here? Where did I pick this up? How old is this? If you're having a hard time putting yourself first, taking good care of yourself, why? Ask yourself why. Get curious. Why aren't you a priority? We are all meant to be here. We are all enough. We are all worthy. Why aren't you a priority in your life? Also, if you want to find a model for New You language, they're easily found for anyone that's working in personal development and training and coaching. We're all in a state of transformation. And you can say to people, I'm going through a change right now in terms of the way I think, or I actually want to try some new things. Know that the mind learns by repetition. It's not going to be one and done. But if you're able to repeat something for at least 21 days, you'll be able to form a new neural network. And that's also why hypnotherapy uses recordings. You create that new way of being. You change that 40 to 50 bits, that blue car that you're focusing on, and you're up and running in a wholly new way. Also, I wanted to just use this picture of the shoes at the door. Remember, we train people how to treat us by our own behaviors and the way that we respond. So when you go over to somebody's house and you know you're supposed to take your shoes off at the door, you take them off. You don't worry about it. Don't let people walk all over you. Get them to put their shoes at the door, whatever changes you need to make, but first respect yourself. And that conveys a lot just right there and then. You can reach for greater control in your life and back off overwhelm using your mind, listening to your body, managing your relationships, especially the one with yourself, and also making tweaks to your environment because you're worth it. Thanks for listening today. If you want to schedule a complimentary discovery call and learn more about hypnotherapy, want to chat, have any questions about anything I've said today, just go ahead. You can scan this QR code or get on my website, and there is a button over on the far right that says Discovery Call. And if you sign up for my newsletter, I'm sending out monthly newsletters to help both with overwhelm and many other topics. You'll get a free 10-minute reboot and relax audio that you can listen to. Great break. It's like taking a half-hour nap. Reset your nervous system. So thanks a lot. I really have enjoyed making this presentation for you today. Stay in touch, keep cool, and push back on overwhelm. Thanks.